I am leading a security team, right? But my experience has not been in security. So it's hard. It's really, really, you need to have a certain mindset. Yeah. So let's go before cloud security podcast. I heard in one of, I think in your 100K download video where I think Shilpi, you said you and Ashish used to run conferences and meetups pre-pandemic.
Yes.
And pandemic happened, can't do any more of the in-person thing. And that's how this happened, right? What were you guys doing before the cloud security podcast? Just a little bit about both of you.
Sure. Maybe I can start first. Yeah. So I think the way it kind of started was we kind of started doing the DevSecOps meetup, which was, I guess the initial idea was when DevSecOps was getting popular, they were looking for someone to organize a lot of meetings. And I was one of the speakers that the folks who were organizing the committee were looking for. They said, oh, do you want to organize like a community thing? I'm like, I had no idea what a community thing is at that point. And also because that used to happen after work, that makes it a bit more tricky because I kind of had to convince her as well, like, hey, we cannot go for a date night because we're going to meet at least 25 or 30 other people who are going to have pizza with us. So it's not like, it's a group date night if we can. So I'm really grateful to her for doing that because I think that kind of started off a trend where we started seeing the value that community gets by sharing knowledge. And we started kind of participating in that. So she would help me out with, I guess, the organizing part of it as well. So her and I kind of were doing the whole DevSecOps meetup for a while. And through that, I started participating in OWASP AppSec Day, which is the largest, I guess, OWASP was like an application security conference. And there's only one that was running in Melbourne, in Australia, and Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
It still is the only one pre-pandemic as well. And I think they're going to run one this year, hopefully. So maybe an online one, but we'll find out. So that was kind of like pre-pandemic. And I think so we kind of always had like our mindset for something community related. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, so I think for me, like I completely don't come from an IT background. So I've been working in finance and insurance and different things. But for me, it was just, I've always had this hunger for like learning different things. So whatever it is, and I've been interested in technology. So it started off with initially me just hanging around the conferences, and then I slowly started entering in, and then I started sitting in and being part of the organization. So it was very organic. And I guess before we kind of knew, we were just organizing these events. So that was kind of a few years before the podcast, I think up till 2019. So like, I think we were doing it for a couple of years prior to that.
Yep.
And then I think from there, obviously, 2019, I think Ashish and I got exposed to podcasting because we were traveling, often to the US for like different conferences and stuff. And we would hear podcasts that different people were doing. And we were like, oh, this is really interesting. You get to learn about different things, especially when you're sitting on those really long flights from US, you're kind of like, oh, I have to listen to something. So, and I think it's interesting. I think one of the people who've inspired us is probably going to come to one of our shows in December. So that'll be interesting. So we'll keep that under wraps for now. But I think...
but you have a little scoop on your interview there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think the way podcast works is we kind of have like, so January to November, we run regular seasons for each month is a set topic. December, I do something for the fun of it. But then that's more to encourage people into podcasting. So last Christmas, I did invite like 2 cybersecurity podcasters to talk about cybersecurity podcasting and what is it like.
Okay.
This December, so the person she's referring to, it's basically the first podcast that I heard, hey, Shilpi, this could be something. And I remember making her hear it. And it was playing in a car for a few months after that, I think. Yeah. But anyway, so I got in touch with the person and told him about what I want to do. He said, yeah, man, I'd love to. So I think I've got a conversation with him tomorrow to kind of finalize the dates for it. But I think at the moment, what looks like the person who inspired us is probably going to be coming on the show as well. So then we kind of come a full circle. There you go.
Nice. Interesting. Okay. All right. So that's what you were doing before the pandemic or before the cloud security podcast started. My next question is, you've just spoken a little bit about the inception. When this idea hit you, did you think it was crazy or did you think it was cool? Did you just like jump into that idea? Like, you know what, Shilpi, you know what, Ashish, let's just do it. Or was it like, should we not? Yeah. Like, how did that happen? What were these conversations happening?
The funny thing is, I think we started off not in cybersecurity. So we've been creating content for a while already, but we were creating content in the food, travel, men's fashion space. which is totally, because I never thought cybersecurity could be a thing. Like I definitely did not think I wanted to create a cybersecurity podcast. That was like the last thing on my mind. I think initially when we were kind of working through it, we were looking at, so there is if you ever search for Travel and Taste, that was her brand that we were kind of growing. We worked with a few hotels, traveled with it, like shot a lot of videos and pictures with it as well. That was pretty good. But when the pandemic happened as well, it's almost like there's no travel. There's no really going to different restaurants as well. And I think this is kind of like just before it started, like December, Jan, is when we were kind of seeing because Singapore had already experienced it. And because the company that I was working for, we could see our Singapore office had shut down by then. And going, okay, this is going to come over here for sure. Because we were on a holiday in Japan in January. And on the way back, we came out of Singapore and they were like, dude, this is really bad. Right. So,
okay.
So then we thought, oh, maybe we should double down on this podcasting at that point. Plus, it was, I think, Shilpi's way of making sure that I don't go crazy on my own, talking to my dog.
Yeah. So Ashish is like, I guess your stereotypical. I call him the peacock in the room. So he's.
I saw it on your About You.
Yeah, he's as extroverted as it comes. So I guess like pandemic and lockdown was like definitely like not his vibe. So like how do you keep, how do you keep people connected through all of that? So I think we were, as Ashish said, already creating a lot of content. So I think we had that need like to constantly like be creative. And obviously we both have, serious desk jobs kind of as we do. We wanted to have that creative outlet. And I think you always look for something that's not your day job or very far away from your day job. And I think that's why we were looking at, Ashish was doing modeling for men's fashion. We were doing food and travel. So very different. And we're like, like how can we channel that creativity into, and we could see opportunities, like everyone was talking about the cloud and they're like, what's the cloud? It's upcoming. People didn't know enough about it. True. And then we were kind of like, oh, you know what? We need to start talking to people. So it's like, how do you bring all of that knowledge and then kind of fit it into, I guess, the cloud journey and then give Ashish an opportunity to actually talk to people about the pandemic. So it just all kind of happened like sort of, it was really organic. And I don't think it started so much as a podcast, more sort of just a conversation with professionals.
Because I still call it Virtual Coffee with Ashish. I never called it Cloud Security Podcast. I still call it Virtual Coffee with Ashish. Yeah, like I think even when people do book the episode with me, I always say it's virtual coffee. It's just a habit now, like after doing it for 2 years, because that's how it was in the beginning. I just asked people for, hey, I used to go out for coffee in person before, but now I can't. So now I would love to do a virtual coffee with Raji and see how that goes. Like, what are you into? What do you do for an outlet? Like, what are you doing in the pandemic kind of a thing? So that's kind of where I think some of the initial seeds were laid out like at that point. So for making a virtual coffee, that turned into a podcast. And next thing you know, we have sponsors. We're like, because I think could be a perfect storm as well for this, right? I think people are trying to look for, hey, where else can I learn? And we had the right opportunity at that point as well.
And that's true. But Ashish and Shilpi, you just said Ashish is a full-blown extrovert, right? What I also find it like, if people are happy to talk to me on the phone, right? Yeah. And me taking down notes, but people are very self-conscious of coming on camera with me. Yeah. So that's why I was like, you know what, I'll stick to writing. There are a lot of people I spoke to said, you know what you're doing, you should do it as a podcast. Like, people are just not comfortable coming on camera. How did you manage to get 100 people on camera with you?
Well, I would definitely be lying if I said there were definitely not a lot of rejections. There were definitely a lot of rejections as well. I think because there is another stage after that, Raji, because the thing is, you have going like, oh, I want to go video, right? Then there is the whole thing of I want to go live. Like, because that's another. So I think initially people were fine with the idea of video because they're like, oh, you can edit that, right? Because I remember my first couple of episodes, showing to Shilpi as well, where the person would stop in the middle, think about the answer. And I'm like, I have to edit that out later. And I think I was telling her that, if I continue like this, because I was spending like close to 8-9 hours after that as well, just to edit that out.
Wow.
So we kind of went, oh, you know what? The best thing is it just goes live. We may cut out a lot of people who would not be interested in doing it, but we just have to go down because that kind of reduces our workflow quite a bit. So I was kind of feeling that both of us were forced into that direction to make.
Right.
And I think the benefit with live also is like, it kind of happened incidentally, but it kind of gives the audience an opportunity to ask questions of the guest while they're there. Yes. Yeah. So, and which is, I think, in hindsight, been a very powerful thing for the podcast because it's almost like you're in the room with the guest and the host, having that live conversation. And yes, sometimes we do get people who are just not comfortable with life because it can be really daunting. But I think most people actually have been game for just,
Really?
let's just do it. And see how it goes. And I think as with anything, it's all about sort of repetition. So we always talk about, doing the reps. So with live as well, like I think now when we watch, our videos like 100 episodes ago, you kind of go, oh, that was cute. Or, you can kind of pick different things. And it just and I think with everything, any skill in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think the guests can obviously watch the video and kind of go, oh, like Ashish will make us feel comfortable. So I guess we've been lucky people have come on board.
Yeah, I'll probably even say this. So when you record this, you put this out there, what that would do is it would encourage other people. Oh, you know what, Raji, I want to come on video as well, though.
Yeah.
I think so. People always, because I think I find people look for that. Hey, I want someone else to go first.
Yes.
I don't want to be the number one. I just want someone else to. But I think our problem is we want to be number one. Yeah. So that's why, like, when I offered, like, you know what, I think we should do a video. Like, you can write it if you want to. That'd be amazing.
Yes.
But I think we should definitely do a video of it. I think that'll be more. I think people would connect more with it. And I think, I'm sure you do this as well. You might connect more with videos than like a writing or more. I think it's almost like a staging effect. You have the video, you have the audio, then you have the text as well, which is where authors are still relevant. They're all amazing as well. But there are 3 different levels of audience you have.
Yeah, that's true. Because I'm also a huge podcast fan. I go for a lot of long walks, especially pandemic changed a lot of things for everyone. So I have all these podcasts, and I'll come back from a podcast and tell my husband, you know what, I learned this on a podcast. And I've got so many of my friends hooked on to podcasting. Just pick a topic and you'll have people talking about that topic, and it's really amazing.
Definitely.
Talking about podcasts now, when I was speaking with Ashish, I told you, Ashish, that I've never done a video before. So if I have to edit this, I don't know. I only ask this.
Hopefully, I think you should say straight through. Don't worry about editing. Just send it.
Yeah, I'm just going to put this. I'm just going to put this on, right?
I think that you'll realize people are okay with natural conversation. I think we probably put ourselves through a lot bigger filter that, hey, I shouldn't be saying ums and ahs. I should be like, I should be sitting like properly like this, or, I should be scratching my head. Like, I'm happy for you to put all of this because people are okay with it, right? I'm still a human. You're still a human.
True.
And if we were to actually meet in real life, this is how it would have been anyways.
Yes, that's right.
So why are we trying to change something which is just normal for humans to go this perfect picture or whatever it may look like? So I think I would encourage you to just put this as it is.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So let's get into some logistics bit of your podcast, right?
Sure.
This podcast idea has gone through my head a couple of years ago. Okay, this is pre-pandemic, or like long time ago. And what I realized is I didn't see a lot of people in tech talking about tech, creating content about tech. You'll have people creating content about self-help, personal growth, development. Tech, I just thought techies are more of we are all like those back-end people, and we just shy coming in. What is the logistics that went behind creating a podcast? So did you have to buy stuff? What did you have to learn to get your podcast going?
Sure. Well, she's a producer. She can tell you more about that as well.
I think, to be honest, and I think that's a barrier that, a lot of people go through is like, oh, you need a good camera. You need a good mic. You need, good equipment, good lighting. Honestly, I think to do anything content related, you don't need much these days. I think it's just getting started. And I think everything else follows. I know like everyone's heard of Gary Vee. And I think one of the things that he's said that really resonated with us, he often says, just get started. If you have an idea and what you're doing as well, just things organically just happen. So for us, when we first started, we didn't have the room for it. So, and because this was pandemic, we had like a makeshift day job office, and then that would convert on the weekends to the podcast office. And, we didn't have the space. We didn't have the equipment. I think initially we were recording on like just our iPhones, didn't have a proper mic. But I think if you are creating something really valuable, I think if you have a great idea, just start. And I think for anyone who's listening to this, I would just say, don't worry about spending money on equipment. That's not what makes good content. It's about the idea and just getting started. And it just gets better, as I guess, you find success or you find the audience slowly, you'd have the money maybe to invest in equipment. You'll start tweaking things. But I think the logistic originally is just to sort of take the plunge, and then you start sort of, going, yep, you listen to other podcasters. I think the other thing that I think Ashish has been really good at is just reaching to other people in the community who are doing similar things and going, what works for you? Being humble about it. I think that's like, don't be afraid to ask, because I think most communities of creators are actually really giving. They do want to share, like what they've learned. So we have been really lucky. I think a lot of people have been so giving with their knowledge. They've said, this is how you should do it. This is the mic I use, or this is, your lighting thing.
Yeah.
And you tweak, I think with every video, with every podcast, I think we've gotten that little bit, I wouldn't say better, but just maybe a little bit nicer as well.
I think it's funny. I think another thing I would add to that, because those are amazing points, but investment doesn't need to be like an expensive, because if you look at a mic and stuff, right, you can get like $600, $700 mic as well. But I've been using this $70 mic for 2 years. Still sounds all right. I only went for this mic because after my first 10 episodes, some pure podcasters, purists, I guess, they started reaching out saying, hey, you need to correct your audio, because I was just recording from my MacBook.
Yeah,
that was the audio. Yeah. So it was almost like, oh, why? What's wrong with that? No, he said, listen to this one and listen to another one. I'm like, oh, there is a bit difference. Yeah. So I had to kind of learn about that. So to what Shilpi is saying, starting off that initial drive, just starting, is really important, because what you realize is, and I'm going to give an example, which was kind of in my mind of it was quick thinking, but a lot of people would be weirded out. But there's a episode that I did a few months ago with a guy from AWS, Eli Khan, and my MacBook died. Right. So there's no way I can connect my regular mic or my setup. So this is I think I normally go live Sunday, 8 a.m. AEDT, Australian Melbourne time. And it's 7:59 that the MacBook crashed. It's just completely gone. It's the guy is waiting on the other end, and I've got to go live. So I remember, because there's no lighting, there's nothing. And so I made a makeshift. I think the video is still on our YouTube channel. It's just really crappy lighting. I just unplugged the mic, put it into this, and just started going. And it was completely natural, because he said, dude, you were fine. I don't think anyone would know that your computer crashed. I think I tweeted about it later on, but I think drive is something that if you're really willing to do it, kind of like how we quickly organize this. A couple of days later, we're already here.
Yeah, that's right.
All three of us were driven to kind of make this happen. That takes, I think, another level of kind of confidence to kind of, oh, this is going to happen, irrespective. Yes. So money and the technology side of things that can come in later. But I think if you have a drive, iPhone is more than enough. MacBook Pro is more than enough, because you think you start putting yourself out there, what you realize is when people start resonating with what you're creating, they themselves start giving you feedback. They're like, oh, you know what? Actually, you could change this. Oh, you could use this mic if you want. Mm-hmm. Or let me recommend a few person who might help you with this particular problem of yours. So that's what I would say. I probably would not even think about technology and mic and everything initially. I'll just start going. Because if this is fine for your colleague or family or whoever you have go Zoom with, it's totally fine with other people as well.
True. Everyone's like us, right?
Yeah, that's right. So everyone's dealing with this volume anyways. No one's expecting like a smooth radio voice to come out of this, right? So I feel like pandemic has made people even a bit more forgiving for this kind of thing as well. So that's what I would say. But as always, I think she mentioned, because we have been helped by other people, we take it in ourselves to make sure we help others as well find their way. That's where the December podcasting kind of experience comes in as well. But
I think at the end of this, you know what? If I had sponsors, I would do that, a giveaway. Guess who is the guest?
That could work.
Yes, you get something. Anyway. All right. Content creation, right? We're talking about a lot of content with podcasts. Cloud Security Podcast does almost every week, right?
Yeah.
That means you have to think about content, what kind of content, and you have to marry it with who's the guest who's going to talk about it. So what is your process of thinking about ideas, who the guest is going to be? How is that entire process happen with both of you?
Oh, maybe I can start first and you can finish. Because I think the reason I'm starting first is because before Shilpi came on board, I was a bit sporadic. I was like, oh, actually, Raji seems like a good topic. So what do you want to talk about, Raji? I'll just talk about that.
I'm the same. That's what I'm doing.
So the problem with that is it's hard to not panic. Because you said it's a weekly, I did weekly for 2 years now, or we're coming close to 2 years.
That's a lot of content.
Yeah, and I think, but the harder problem is it's easy to find people, but then you have to match time with them, time zone with them. Oh, because I was not budging on my time because I'm like, no, I'm going to do Sunday 8 a.m. because I've got a full-time job as well. And this is not paying for it. So I kind of would ask them, hey, you need to do this time. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. So I had to find the right people. But when she came on board, I think she came up with the idea, which I'm going to let her explain.
Yeah. So I think it's just now, I think, and again, when it's that whole story of when you start, you just start, like you just start, it's random, you're trying different things. And I think that's the beautiful thing about content is there is no right or wrong. And there is no right, like, you don't have to follow what one person does. So I think for us, I thought, why don't we start doing themes? So season 2, we've actually had themes every month. We're like, how do we consolidate, content around and then kind of give ourselves a bit of a focus as well so that we're not kind of just jumping from one thing to another. So that's actually was really well received. I think we did a Kubernetes month. We did an AWS. At the moment, I think we've just wrapped up cloud security trends. And the next one's going to be serverless. So I think we started grouping them by topic. And I think we're still going to brainstorm as to what season 3 is going to be, if you're going to do the same or something different. Because I think that's the other thing with content is you always want to rediscover the same thing. It's like when we watch certain like TV shows, if it was exactly the same from season 1 to season 2, you wouldn't enjoy it because the audience already is expecting that. So you kind of have to keep ramping things up a little bit and keep evolving. So our process is really like this year has been more about just that grouping, but in terms of topics and stuff, we obviously have to keep on top of, all the latest things happening in cloud security.
I can imagine. Yes.
And I think like now we've launched cloud security news. So that kind of really helps us as well because we're ahead of the cloud security news. So that kind of helps us be ahead of the cloud security topics as well. So that's kind of really worked out quite well as well. But also again, I think the community is a big part of it. Sometimes the community, like the audience tells us what they want to hear about. And also like guests have been really generous saying, oh, you should talk to this guy, he knows a lot about blah. So it's a lot of moving parts and it's just bringing it all together, I guess.
Yeah, I think she was talking about me when she was talking about all over the place. Like coming up like, oh, so what are you talking about this weekend? I'm like, I don't know. I need to find someone for that. So that definitely didn't work for her. So she definitely brought the organization to it, I guess.
Yeah, my husband is like, what are you posting this Thursday? Yeah.
I'm like, but I think the best part is the renewal of content that we're talking about is because now when you post a video, what that does is people are like, oh, so Raji does video as well. So I think that'll be fun. I'm gonna post that. So I think that's the kind of motivation you need to keep having as well. How do I make it more exciting? Kind of like the example Shilpi said about, hey, whatever your favorite TV show is, if they do the exact same thing season 2, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm starting to get board. Season 3, you just move on to something else. You're like, okay, I'm going to go something else now. So that pressure is always there as well.
So, you through all this content creation, what are your biggest goof-ups that have happened? Like something you just got like, oh God, are you kidding me? Or something just hilarious has happened with you. You forgot to record a video. I was like, oh no.
I've got 2 actually. I've got one where I could not hear the guest. We were on live stream. I could not hear the guest. I kept saying, I can't hear you for some reason. It was not my fault, by the way. Everyone on the live feed is saying, hey, we can hear, we can hear, we can hear. And I did not see the comments. I just kept focusing on the fact that I couldn't hear the guest. And she said, oh, let me restart my browser, come back in. And she did that again. And then I saw the title, like, that was one. There was another one where there's another lady. Fortunately, we got her again for a good interview. She, for some reason, her audio kept going off. And the whole 1 hour thing became an hour and a half. She had to go for dinner. There was like all these things happening at that point. But again, one of those ones where it was goof up at my end, but not her end. But that was like kind of like, I don't know, what was your favorite one?
I think the one that does, and I think it's just like one of those simple ones where it's like sometimes, I think a couple of times we've like snoozed our alarm, like because it is a Sunday morning, and it's like, who snoozed the alarm? So just making sure you're awake for the damn thing. Like I know you've had a few close calls, like it'll be like 7:53 or something, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, jumping out of the bed. So if you see me in any videos I've got bed hair, that's why I put bed hair. That's the reason I just woken up and like made sure that at least things were there. But yeah, that's definitely one more thing.
Yeah, so it's always very exciting because it's live and it's every week. But
isn't it scary? Do you prepare for your questions? But with writing, it's very easy for me. I talk to my guests And through that transcript, then I write down that article, which is, people can relate with it. But live is a completely different ball game, right?
Yeah.
So do you
there is a bit of
prepare for
prep.
the topic? Yeah.
There is a bit of prep, like because I think you do want to let people know what the general topic is going to be about. But the idea is kind of similar to kind of what we did over here. There was a set of questions, but we don't really have to strictly follow the questions. It just becomes like, oh, are we just getting to know Raji, or you just getting to know Ashish and Shilpi? Like, what's about Cloud Security podcast? And I think what I found was the first 3-4 were a bit like strict to the questions. Like, oh, like I need to go through the questions and because I didn't have much of a live audience. But once I started getting a live audience, I kind of realized, oh, actually, you know what? They're the ones who are asking more interesting questions than what I had in my mind. So I think I started putting them in front, and that helped me get better at writing questions as well, or asking questions as well. Because you almost like you take a leaf from, say, someone said something really interesting about, you know what? I think I love the headphone that Raji is wearing right now. And actually, you know what? I bought a headphone recently. Like, just like you pick on that and you kind of keep going from it, and you just don't know before the hour is almost over. Mm-hmm. And there is definitely a little bit of prep required, but what you find is after a while, you kind of get used to it. And I think you start thinking as you're talking as well.
No, I was curious because, it's a very technology topic. It's a very specific topic, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like us having a conversation right now. We are having it about a cloud security podcast. What was your motivation, intention? So it can flow. It's better if it's flowing, right? But with something which is more technical.
I think
do you need to know a little more about the topic when you're talking to a guest to sort of probe them into talking?
I would agree. Yeah,
I would probably say, I was going to chime in. I think the main thing is, I think he like Ashish works in the field. So his day job is, and I think that's what we often talk about. Like, I think that often, people who cover things from a media perspective probably don't have that background where they're actually working in that particular field. So like his day job is very much in the weeds. So I think that kind of helps, where he's actually a practitioner speaking to another practitioner rather than a media person speaking to a practitioner. So I think that kind of flows through. So I think we've often talked about, the strength that brings. Obviously it means you're juggling two hats, but I think that's kind of like one of the key reasons why I can see the conversations being so fluid.
I'm glad I appear quite intelligent. That's all I want to say. It's like, I think if it's not sound smart, my mom and dad would be really happy if they're listening.
Oh, my mom and dad are going to be so happy about this.
Oh
my God, yes.
Yeah, like, she has a video. Oh my God, Raji, you're grown up now. I'm sure our parents would love this experience, but I think to what Shilpi just said, I think it definitely being a technical topic, I definitely found that I sometimes had to, because I think there are certain topics which I was not working in my day job. Like I wasn't even seeing them. So I had to do some research beforehand, at least to get some idea. So I think the trick that I used was I made sure the first 2 episodes were around foundational pieces. So I get some information. Oh, what is this really? So I get my information from them. And then I use that to kind of build on, what's an advanced level of this? How do I scale this? But I think to Shilpi's point, I think having a technical podcast definitely means you need to have some kind of technical understanding of it. Whereas if it's more to your point about earlier health and wellness, like, I normally get a headache every second day. What do you think I should do?
Yes.
Like, I'm sure mental health is better than much more than that, but I'm thinking maybe.
I know, I agree with you. Like it's different, right? Technology, and you'll have you ever had an live feed when you are talking to your guest and someone just like, no, this is not right, this is wrong?
Oh, actually I have.
Has it happened?
It has. So I get people here and there who kind of feel like, no, actually, you know what, I don't agree with this, and this is what I feel. And we often talk about it as well. I think it's a good quality for a tech person to have, where you're able to kind of say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm happy to kind of learn from you if you know more than I do. But this is what I know, or this is how far I can get to. But it's easier for me as well. I address it so people feel like my conversation was heard, and then I can move on. But I haven't had a troll yet, if that's what you're thinking of. So that would be really, I don't know how I'll deal with that.
Yeah, it's scary creating content. I think a lot of people find it scary because of this supposed flack that you could get for the content that you are
That's
putting.
right. Yeah.
Especially, something like LinkedIn. One of my friends, she did tell me, I don't know how you put anything out on LinkedIn because it's about your job, it's your career. Nope, there's so many future employers looking at you. Because Instagram for me is just like, you just put like, oh, nice selfie pictures, but people look at LinkedIn very differently.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's kind of what worked in our favor, I guess, because there are people expecting a more professional content. But when you bring in a human element with a story for, hey, what is behind this individual who may be a security architect today, but how did they come over there? Or someone who may be a CISO, someone who may be a podcast content creator in this space. How did they get to where they are today? Because that is also professional. Like,
yes,
we're not talking about like, oh, what did you do when you were 2 years old? No one's really, that's like, you're still doing the, I guess, the professional audience a fair service, for lack of a better word, by giving them a story of someone they're already seeing around them. How many people get to find out a bit more deeper about anyone else?
Yeah,
so I think things like these are definitely people connect with. Could be a great resume tomorrow. Like, oh, if you ever want to know about me, just go watch that interview. That has everything about it. So
yeah, my husband now puts that interview link on his resume, saying, this is my take on what a solution architect does. So that's helps.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Ashish and Shilpi, you are one of the first, not one of the first cloud security podcasts.
We are the first.
You are the first.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that tech content creation landscape changing? You've been doing this for 2 years. What are your observations?
I think definitely, after, the cloud security or cloud in general, I think there's a lot more content being produced after that. So I think after our podcast, there's been several other cloud securities-ish podcasts that have been released. A lot of the content is coming from like vendors or providers. I think where I guess we kind of stand out, and I think something we're proud of is the fact that we try and keep as neutral as possible. We want to bring stuff that's completely unbiased. And I think that kind of drives a lot of, I guess we've been really lucky that all of our sponsors have been sort of kind of work with our ethos. And, we want to sort of keep that so that we can bring content that actually is valuable. So we're not going to go and say, oh, this is great or that's great, when it's not. So I think we definitely are seeing much more content, and I think there is a true value for content in the market. So people are seeking out content to sort of learn more, engage themselves. And I think with the pandemic, I think people are so used to just hopping on online things.
Yes.
A lot of conferences have gone on, online as well, and many of them are free or have become much cheaper. So just overall access of content has increased. But yeah, I think there's a lot coming, especially from that vendor or provider space. But there's a lot of interesting things happening, and I think the community is just growing, and everyone, as I said before, people are so giving. So it's an exciting time. Like I think we feel like we've been here at a really good time where a lot of good things are happening, and we're learning a lot from each other. So.
Definitely 100K downloads, 100 episodes. That's huge.
No, I appreciate that.
I just feel thrilled after 2. The first one I did, and I was like, oh my God, my first articles there was so exciting.
Yeah, I think it's exciting at this end, but I think when you start off and every week you're kind of like, oh, why am I, especially when I think the first, and that's what I would like encourage you or anyone else creating content. I think keep going, especially the first, 5-6 months or even a year, you don't see much traction. I think it's only now that we've come up to 2 years, now we see, oh, now this feels real. Even sponsorship and stuff, those things happen after, some consistency. So I think that's something that we would definitely share, just keep going. I think that's the big message. I think that's been our key learning, because, there was a lot of months and a lot of years like where we went, oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this on a Sunday? We could be out doing other things. But
we go for a brunch, easy. Well, I think I would probably say this, like for making sure you are consistent, one thing that worked for us, and this is kind of like the key message as well, is you need to find content that you enjoy producing. Like, for you enjoy writing. If you enjoy video as well, I would definitely encourage going that way, because then it's easier for you to convince yourself, you know what, I'm going to do one more this weekend. And I think after a while, say after you do about, say, 10 or 12, what you start realizing is start reaching out to more people. You start talking as if you are a producer of content, like, content creator. So I think it takes some time for people to switch to that mentality, but I think you will find it happens naturally after, say, you do a few weeks of this. you feel, you know what, I'm actually writing. So I'm like a writer. Like I'm like you could write it as like a story writer or text writer, whatever you want to call yourself. You can start feeling yourself having that authority in that space as well. Because anyone else, like I cannot claim I've written as many articles as you have. So I would look at you for, hey Raji, what do you think I should do for writing? Like, because you've done more of that than I have. So the same way, I'm happy to share the video thing with anyone else who wants to do more, because I've done more videos than them. So everyone has their, I guess, the lane that they really enjoy creating content in. And if they stick to it, it's easier to have that longer duration of consistency. Like if you are not I don't know what's the word for it, probably like if you're not like a video person, you hate videos, absolutely hate them, then you can try, oh, you know what, blogging. Oh, so if I ask you, Raji, you should do videos only. That's going to work against you, because after the first two, you're like, oh, you know what, Ashish forced me, so I did it. But I actually hate this. I don't even know why I convinced with this. So you probably will stop doing it. But if it comes from you, you do this one, you do another one after that, and you start enjoying it. You start meeting new people, you start having, maybe even you meet some of them in person as well. You find that consistency comes easy after that.
Yeah. I think I was going to wrap that part of it by just saying, like, something that we often say to each other and we say to other people is, like, no one can do what you do in your way. So even if there are like many different, say blogs that are maybe similar to you, but you are Raji and you'll do it in your own way. So I think there's always a space for everyone, because everyone brings their own unique thing to every single thing. So, and, so that's something that, we definitely.
Actually, it's funny she says that, because the way people look at us or Cloud Security Podcast is that we are that next generation of media company for cybersecurity. Like, I think it feels funny to call it a media company, but I think we are technically a cybersecurity media company now.
Yeah.
And the way people have looked at us, like, we are that next generation. Because now, no disrespect to any of the existing media companies, but they've been there for 10, 20 years. They're pretty, like, I guess from a tenure perspective, they have a lot of tenure, but no one has come in and done kind of what we are doing in our age group, where, hey, let's go live streaming, let's go podcasting, let's go YouTube.
Yeah. Let's be more real. Yeah, because your videos are more, like, they're natural, they're more real.
Yeah, I think that's where I feel like a lot of people connected with us, because they're like, oh, you know what, this is happening my time. This is like, I connect with this. I don't connect with like I don't know, imagine like a sponsor banner somewhere and like, oh, what do you think about the product X? And tell me more about what are the features you're talking about this. Can I drag and drop this and it will happen? So people don't connect with that anymore. And I think it's very evident in, like, we are truly believers of the whole product-led growth market. I don't know if you've heard of the term, but I would definitely encourage anyone who's not looked at it. That's kind of where a lot of people are going, where they want adoption of the product first before even you try to sell it. Like, what's the point of me selling, say, Ashish a big expensive mic when he's happy with his $80 mic?
True.
Like, there's nothing you can tell me that'll convince me, unless you give it for free. That's a different thing.
Like, maybe some sponsor will, Ashish.
Yeah, hopefully one day. But yeah, that's kind of what keeps us there, though. But hopefully that helps.
Interesting. So, 100 episodes, 100K downloads, sponsors. How has this journey changed anything for both of you? Not with respect to materialistic or, just having sponsors, but this whole journey. How has this journey impacted you? I'm sure, so like you said, Shilpi, you Cloud Security Podcast has impacted a lot of people, right? A lot of us have learned from those podcasts. My husband is an architect. He still listens because he wants to understand more security as an architect. He does listen to your podcast, and that's how I started
appreciate
following
that.
it.
Let me say thank you to him from my side.
That's how. So how has that impacted both of you as creators?
I think, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in.
Go for it.
I think, because while you were saying that, and I was thinking, what is something, I think for us, I think the biggest thing, and I think we've always spoken about that, what is like, and I'm going to get a bit deep here, so sorry, but it's like, what do you want out of life? We always talk about the fact that what is it that, there's a goal to what is the meaning of life anyway. So I think for us, the biggest thing has been, I think we feel we have a real purpose. So I think the biggest, most rewarding things for us is, the messages that we get from the audience. A lot of people, they said, I've gotten a career in cloud security because of this. This has really helped me, and every time we get that in each and every one of them, it really keeps us going, because I think it's very rare that you get to make an impact, a true impact in someone's life. And I know it might not be a huge impact, but even a tiny bit, if we can help someone learn, if we can help someone, feel connected. And I think a career is such a big thing because, it kind of drives, you spend, half of your life working in your job. So if you can get a career where you enjoy yourself, you get to grow, you get to learn from other people, and you're not having to, spend a lot of money to do that, because that could be a massive barrier. I think for us, I think that's been the biggest thing. And that's what keeps us going, even if, there's the other aspect of, it's a business and we love that. But what really sort of keeps us going is the fact that, it's the ability to really influence, people, or, help people, and getting to meet like lots of really amazing people as well. Like everyone's been, it's made us really humble as well, because we've met people who are so accomplished, have done so many things, and they're so generous with their knowledge. So I think that's been probably for me, at least, there's been two of the biggest things, like, just the purpose of keeping on going and being able to give back.
Yeah, I think I still remember the first message that I got where someone said, hey, thank you to the podcast, because of that I got my first cloud job.
Wow.
And I was like, I still remember that moment even now. It's funny, I've got something planned for him for a 100K episode as well. But it was really interesting to kind of hear about you create something and it helps someone somewhere in another part of the world, right? I think we've got people from so we've been in the top 100 for US, UK, and Australia for technology podcasts and it's funny, I get messages from other podcasts saying, hey, how are you keeping yourself in top 100? Like, I don't get this. Like, what are you doing something different to us? And I'm super grateful about the fact that people are, I guess, feeling what we are trying to create for them. And it's underneath all of what we are creating is what's driving it is what Shilpi said, where it's the ability for someone to, I guess, get a job or get a better job than what they already have. Like, there's nothing which can make it better for anyone else. Like, if I can help someone get a job, get their first job, imagine that not just feeds a family, but then helps build a lifestyle. You feel confident. There's so much more to getting a job these days than just like, oh, my parents are happy that I'm settled, like quote unquote settled, I guess. Like, I think there's so much more to life. Like, I think you kind of think about like, oh, money gives you access to traveling. Money gives you access to so many other things. You don't have to you can pay off your loan if you have one. I think that was definitely one thing that I think I feel still hold to my heart. And I think
and we still get excited about every single message. I think whenever we get a message or a comment, Ashish, and I'm like, look, this person, it's just, I think that the 100 episodes or, the downloads, that for us is like that many people potentially have benefited in the tiny, tiny way from this. And I think that's been the biggest, and hopefully we can continue to
I think the Maslow's I don't know if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of need, but I think we found that we kind of at that stage where it's not about materialistic thing, kind of as you mentioned. Like I think what we're finding is the more we help other people, the more happier we get. And I think as people who are trying to see this, that's basically more addictive than anything else for me at this point in time. Where when I create something that helps someone and they reach out and they say, hey, you know what, I did this, and thanks to you, I got this. I'm like, oh my God, like this is so cool. If you actually see our text messages, like there's a lot of them are screenshot those messages. like, hey, look at this person also got a job as well. So that goes a long way. Cool. Yeah.
So, when you get on a journey like this, even when I know if I'm putting content out on LinkedIn, no one's paying me to do that, right? Neither are my guests paying me, nor is anyone. I'm doing that because I'm loving what I'm doing. Yeah. But it's hard to keep on creating content. You have to put in that time, that effort. It's mental, it's emotional, physical. When you started, what was going on in your head? Did you think you would be here 2 years later celebrating all these milestones? Or do you think, let's do it and we'll see how it goes?
Well, you go first.
I mean, us just as people, I think we've always tried doing different things. So, we'll pick up something we were into martial arts, we do snowboarding, different things. We just pick stuff up and we just want to learn. And I think this to us was just another thing that we wanted to give it a crack. And I think something someone said to us, and I again, and I think you'd hear me say a lot of things because I think a lot of people have really influenced our lives and we've taken little gems from everyone. And they said, anything you start is never a failure. It just becomes something else. And I think that's pretty much what we thought, worst case, we'll come out of this and we would have learned something so everything that we learned when we were doing like the Instagram, the travel, the taste, the food blogging, the men's fashion, they were successful, but we won't say they were massively successful. But we've been able to translate so much of that knowledge into this. And I think that's an ethos that we carry with us all throughout. And I would just recommend that to everybody, that, nothing that you learn in life is a waste. You can just, that morphs into something else. So I think that's when we started, we just thought, what, worst case, we would have spoken to a few lovely people, we would have learned how to do this. And at least we can say, we did podcasting. So
yes,
I think just that ongoing learning was, I guess, our goal. I don't know whether we had really a vision, because I think we just started off, initially we were thinking like, various different things, and this kind of just snowballed. And I think things just have a way of organically developing. I think if you put something out in the ether, something just comes back, as long as you keep giving something into the ether. So I think that, again, I know I keep harping on, it's one of the really boring things as well, but it's about that consistency and persistence. If you just keep doing, something will transpire, but it's not always easy as well.
I'll give a practical opinion. I think and this is all true as well, by the way. So this definitely is our motivation, but the way I guess the content space works, it relies a lot on, say, consistency. I'll give you a solid example. Whatever your favorite TV show is, I just say, I don't know, Game of Thrones. I guess that's the first one came to my mind, but I've never seen it. Squid Games. I just go with that. So imagine that. Like, imagine if Squid Games is your most popular TV show, but they say, you know what, Raji, we have the first episode, you really loved it, but we'll release the next episode when you feel like it. So would you actually ever watch it again? Because you've already lost.
You don't know. You've already lost them.
I don't know if I'll be alive when the next one comes out. So right. So, but if you say, oh, you know what, I'll be here every week, or I would be here every month. Like every week, probably, I felt every week was too much, but I hear people talk about it daily podcasts as well. I'm like, I don't know how they do it, but there are people who are churning that as well, doing it on a daily basis. But I kind of picked the weekly one because I thought that gives me enough time for my day job. And Saturday, that's why it's always on a Sunday, because I think that's the day I've got, in a way, learning from other people. That's my community time as well. So, and I think she was on board with it. So that kind of worked out really well. But the whole idea behind this thing, that you kind of have to find something that you enjoy for that reason, because it's easier to be consistent when it's something that you enjoy. Like, I think I love creating videos for me. Like, I think she enjoys pictures, producing more. For her, that's the thing. For me, more videos are the thing. And I think what we find is we were able to kind of mix them together. And that's kind of what you see in the podcast, is the production, the images, the branding, that's everything her. The video is me. And the way we kind of go about that is we kind of found each other's strength, and that kind of helped us keep going, because she obviously had the ethos for, I enjoy this, easier for me, and you enjoy that. But underlying this, we want to help other people. And this is where we can combine our skill set, I guess, to kind of bring something valuable to the audience. That's kind of how we landed on this. So I would definitely come back to the whole consistency piece is easier if you have something that you enjoy that you're doing. Because there's no other motivation than just like, I'm just going to snooze the alarm and wait for another 10 minutes. It's so much more easier to do that. What you find is, once you have booked a time, like no matter what the circumstance, right? So you've told someone, say, hey, I'll be there at 7 p.m. You would be there at 7 p.m. Because in your mentally in your mind, like, oh, I've got someone else waiting. Unless it's like an absolutely unavoidable situation, you would let the person know.
Yes.
But you kind of make, in your mind, you have like, you know what, someone else is relying on me. And once you start getting like, so for you, maybe your husband is watching the first one, he's putting it out there. So you put the second one, you put this one out there, gets a lot of interaction, a lot more people start reaching out for, Raji, this was amazing. You should do more of this. And now you start seeing, oh my God, like I've got at least 20, 30 people who now wait on this every Thursday that Raji's going to release an article about someone. So you start thinking that way as well. And that creates an accountability. And that, I think that comes with consistency only. So consistency, accountability. So it sounds very easy, but when you start doing it, it's like kind of like, hard. Yeah, it is hard. It's super hard. It's never easy.
Yeah. Like I was like, no, I'm going to do this every fortnight. I didn't have the courage to do this every Thursday because I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to, if so many people would be willing to talk. And I was surprised by the engagement that people are willing to talk about.
It is different as well. So I was not surprised, to be honest, because I was like, oh, that's for me. I remember showing it to Shilpi, the one that you did for your husband. I'm going, actually, you know what? That's an interesting piece of content because no one else is producing it. And you are bringing your own flavor. So no one else can be Raji as well. That's perfectly enough as well. So you bring your own, I guess, in a way, skill set into it and go, hey, why would I read this? Or what would I do? And that's my dog.
If you can just see that we've got a dog, he does make guest appearances from time to time.
Yeah, so he clearly wants to go down, I think. But I think the thing that I was going to say was, when I saw that content, I definitely said, oh yeah, this is definitely interesting. And I definitely look forward to the next one, because that made me go, this is going to stand out. And if you enjoy this and if you remain consistent, you'll definitely see like whatever. And by the way, I don't want to put like a label to a success thing. If he can start show his ass in the video, that can totally go in.
This is another part of like video, like, you know, and when you have a pet,
yes,
they just want to do their own thing.
They want to have their ass on the video camera. But I think, I'll definitely go, good boy. There you go. So he's settled in. The thing I would say is I definitely enjoy the different kind of content, because you find that that's what gives you eyes. Again, a lot of people looking at it, and the more you start sharing it, the more people start expecting that from you as well. I think that would go a long way, and you're creating good content. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I still remember when I saw that video and I said, you know what, I'm just going to say, yeah, I would like to talk to both of you. And when I saw Ashish's message, I was jumping around again. And I said, you know what?
and even good on you for like jumping on the video thing, because I told Ashish, you know, I really appreciate when people just want to take the plunge. So, you know, when he said video and you said yes, I'm like, you know, I really commend that, because I think that's all you need to do. Just take the plunge. It may work out, may not, but you just have to try it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I have a few more questions.
Yeah, I think I've got another 10 minutes. So
I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah.
How many hours on an average do you both have to put in to keep your cloud security podcast running?
Oh, I laugh.
Wait. I think you're scared to put a time on it. So any time where we're not doing our day job, and, you know, we're lucky we both have jobs, you know, that we are also passionate about, and we do spend a lot of hours on there. But evenings, weekends, I think pandemic kind of like
driving to a cafe, we talk about it. Coming back from cafe, we talk about it.
We've gotten really creative about, like, the only rule I've made is not in the bedroom, but everything else is fair game. So, you know, when we're cooking dinner, but it is a lot of hours. And I think that's one of the things. I think once you grow and, you know, you have more of an audience and sponsors and stuff, you are much more accountable. So, you know, we have to be just that much more driven. I think even if you're not feeling well, you still have to keep churning stuff out. And I think that's one of the things, like with your own thing, you are so much more accountable as well, because, you know, there's nobody, you can't really take a sick leave from yourself. So,
that is true.
So I think you have to kind of, you know, I'm scared to, I don't know, like it is a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours. So just say that. Because I think initially it was a bit different when we didn't have a lot of accountability in terms of a lot of people reaching out. Hey, I got my job. Thanks for creating this content. Rah, rah. And you're almost like, oh, when you have hundreds of people, thousands of people waiting for it, you almost feel accountable on a daily basis, because it could just be that one episode that you put out that helps the 99th person on there.
Yeah, true.
But you don't know which one, but one of them would be affected by it. And you not producing it potentially could just mean that the person doesn't get a job or doesn't get that promotion or doesn't solve that problem that gets in the promotion kind of a thing as well. Because a lot of people who discovered our podcast also discovered it while trying to look for a solution for a problem.
Yeah.
So that was the best way.
Yeah. But I think balance, is also important. So I think that's another thing we keep, you know, sort of coming back to, that, yes, we need to make sure, you know, we need to listen to our bodies. You know, when you're feeling tired, you need to make sure you're having enough sleep. exercise, all of those things. So for anyone who's like, doing like a side hustle, you need to have that balance as well, because I think at the end of the day, one thing you can't replace is your own self and your health.
Yes.
So I think that's a reminder. And I won't say we are perfect. I think we do sometimes go into overdrive where we go, got to do this, so exciting. But then you kind of have to realize, and it's like, yes, we need to have enough sleep. We need to do all those things.
Definitely get enough sleep.
Yeah, sleep, if you can exercise, meditate, whatever works for you. You have to find your anchor, I guess.
Because I can definitely certify that 4 hours of sleep is not good enough for a life. It definitely makes you slur. It definitely makes you slur quite a bit. You're murmuring. You're like, what is he saying? I can't get it. I have to put captions on to make sure, like, the captions don't understand me. Like, oh my God. Yeah. So 4 hours is not enough. You're just saying that. So at least get 7 to 8 hours of sleep for sure. Please try it.
So what's your, you said, when you started the Cloud Security podcast, you just plowed through, you said you're creating content. Do you have any vision for Cloud Security podcast in the near future? Let's not think beyond that, but what's Ashish and Shilpi's vision for Cloud Security podcast?
I think there's a few. There's definitely to scale and help a lot more people. And I think the short of it is, I think we've definitely got some like targets in terms of how many people we want to help out, but we also have some targets in terms of we want to create something that gives value to a lot of organizations in terms of, like, I think we've kicked off something called Cloud Security Academy. And the idea behind that is we want to start something educational for other people, because it's so easy to get a lot of information which probably is not relevant for your job, and it's too generic. And sometimes it is also just a matter of finding, hey, this doesn't apply to me, but this does. Hey, I just want to solve this particular problem. And I normally found that YouTube was a great way to kind of go down that path. So it definitely, at least the near vision is to create a lot more of those kind of content.
Yeah. So I think for us, I think the overarching thing really was that we wanted to be all across cloud security. So anything to do with cloud security, that's the reason why we've started Cloud Security News as well. Any gaps that are there in this, we would, for now, I guess that's our short-term goal. And obviously, we want to expand into other parts of technology, getting more people on board. So we've started having contributors on board as well. So, other people's perspective, so those kind of things. So there's different layers of, what we want to do. But I think initially, I would say like the short-term goal is the more things in that cloud security umbrella. But, there's and technology is always changing. So cloud security might not be cloud security if in 5 years, there'll be something else. True. Yes. And just being open to that as well. So I think that's what
the ultimate goal would be to be able to help 1 billion people. That would be the ultimate goal.
that would be amazing.
So the best thing you can do is put it on the ether and see it happen. That's pretty much it.
It happens. Yeah. My ultimate goal would be to have a book published with all these stories of amazing people that.
Oh my God!
That's the ultimate goal.
Amen to that.
I can actually introduce you to someone who can help you with that self-publishing or however you can do it as well. So
the ether is already responding.
Yeah.
There you go. Because we were talking about a book as well. So I reached out to a few people who've written a book recently. And they all spoke about how, again, nowadays you can be a self-publisher author as well. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to go down the path, I can definitely point you to the right resources as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sounds really good. But I don't want to miss out on anything. Oh, yes. If any of the audience who's watching, people who follow me, people who know me, and they've not watched Cloud Security podcast, what is that one episode that Ashish, you and Shilpi, you would recommend someone start? What's your favorite episode that you would recommend?
What's your favorite? I'm curious.
I think it's like picking your favorite kids or whatever. I think it's really depends on what you're after. So I think we're doing a revamp of our website, but even with our current website, we do have a starter series as well. So I think that's a good way to start. Really depends on what you're coming for. So obviously, if you are wanting to get into cloud security, there's some really good cloud security engineer, architect episodes there. If you are coming from, say, a startup or an enterprise, you're wanting to solve problems, there's some really good talks about, how we can go down that path. So I think it really depends. I think there's something for everyone, at least in the last 100 episodes. I feel fairly confident that we've kind of covered, not everything, but a broad host of things. But I think that the starter series is always a good one, so you go down the topic. But I don't think I can really pick a favorite. I've got quite a few. And I love listening to and I think that's something that, I actually edit the podcast and I've kind of kept that to myself still because I just love listening to each and every episode. Like I learned so much from it as well.
She just loves listening to my voice. That's pretty
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna. I think to Shilpi's point, we obviously love what we're creating. That's why it's out there as well. But I think if I were to tell anyone to check out a few, there are a couple that have always stood out for me. Not because their content is better than other people's content, but also they definitely have the same level of information or knowledge being shared. But what stood out for me were the guests themselves and how they kind of approached technology, which I think was really interesting. There was one episode by Kelsey Hightower. This is a guy who does keynotes for Google Cloud. Okay. And he spoke about technology in a very so he, you know how I said like I do the introduction videos. So he was my introduction video for Kubernetes because he loves talking about it, and I got him on, and I was like, he's explained it in such a simple way. And I'm going, wow. I go, and by the way, we didn't really prep for it. It was all natural conversation as well. And you kind of, if you hear it, you kind of understand how he has kind of moved from a sysadmin to doing something in container cloud, and then he's doing Kubernetes. But every time he's been able to link it back to his first job all the way. And it's almost like, oh, it's just the same thing. It's a bit different, like a different person with different lipstick on or something, kind of like that. Oh, that's really interesting. So that was one episode that stood out for me. The other one that stood out for me was the one that I did with the LinkedIn CISO, Jeff Belknap. That was really good as well. That again, not because it has better content or anything. Every episode has good content and relevant for the audience that you're looking for or the topic you're looking for. That was stood out because I could not believe how humble he was for someone who's a CISO of LinkedIn. You almost look at that and you go like, oh my God, this guy is going to be like, I don't know, there was an entourage at the back. So it's not that he was alone. There was someone on the live stream as well who were ready to cut the feed if something happened, which was, I guess, a non-good for the brand, I guess.
Brand or something.
Yes, so they had a few PR people at the background, but I mean, it didn't come to that. But that was always good to know that, that even people at that level are so humble. And I think I can understand why as well, because anything they say becomes a representation of the company.
Yes.
And at that level, so for them, they have to be really careful about what they say. Like, I think people like me were just like, oh, I'm just curious. Like, what do you do for this? What do you do for that? Yeah. And before we know it, we're having a moment and I would ask something sensitive and he responds to it. So I think from that perspective, those two episodes I'll definitely recommend just to show how humble people can be and sometimes how easy can learning be is actually in technology.
And that's very interesting. You say that, Ashish. When I was going to start this, I was thinking, we talk to people who are working for different organizations, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a scene where they're like, I don't know if I can talk about something because I work for my organization? Obviously, a CISO or a C-level executive, they have to be mindful. But what about people who are not at that level? Do they have you ever had a conversation with like, I don't know if I can talk about this?
Yeah. So I think most organizations, especially the bigger ones, have to go through some level of, they need to get the, okay, I can go on this. And then there'll be certain things they cannot talk about. I think we have had instances where people have probably said something and we've had to do some post editing and crawling back of information as well. And that happens, that's just part of content creation. So I think, definitely. I think depending on what level and what organization there's, definitely they need to get approvals. There's certain things obviously we can't speak about, and there are sometimes some things that are mentioned and then there's frantic calls going, oh, can you delete this and do that? But, that happens, and that's part of because it is cybersecurity at the end of the day, and there is a lot of sensitive information.
I think the idea is not to share anything which is like, how does the cybersecurity what's the cybersecurity posture of that company? Like, I think we obviously make sure continuing with the ethos, because the cybersecurity conversation, we definitely would not ask a question which is too specific about that particular organization. Like all our episodes, if you ever go back to it, they talk about from their own experience. Like they would never say, oh, this is how I do in so-and-so company. If it's a past company and it was a public talk that they had given, that they had got the approval for, that only then they talk about it. Otherwise, I've never had anyone who's gone, obviously we had to go through PR approval for most of those, like companies like Netflix, Atlassian, all of them require PR approval before anyone can actually speak to you. Microsoft as well. But the idea, or even Amazon, I can keep going. There's quite a few. But I think the idea behind that was always to frame questions which are not bringing out anything too sensitive from an organization perspective. Like I would never ask a question which is, say, what kind of firewall do you use? like, and do you guys have this problem in your company? Like, no one wants to be on a public call talk about how bad their company is. No matter how all our companies are amazing. They always do a great job.
Yes. And now that we talk about it, I have to go back at the start and see what did I say? Did I start
Well, I'm glad you can edit this later on, though.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad it was not live.
Yeah.
All right. I can go on and talk to both of you, but I
know you can. I was looking at the clock. It's 3 minutes over, but I appreciate you kind of like.
No, if you do have any like last questions, like definitely, I think we definitely have 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Can I squeeze another one in, or are you happy to kind of wrap it up here?
No, I'm happy to wrap it up. I think who is your dream guest? But I think that dream guest is coming. That was my last question, but I think you've spoken about it right at the start that you're going to have.
Yeah, he's gonna come in December. I don't know if it's a dream guest, but he's definitely someone like, I think my dream guest it changes quite a bit. But he was definitely someone.
I think we've had a few of our dream guests. Already, like I think we've been really lucky that we have, but I think there's so many great people in cybersecurity. I think there's quite a few still I think we would love to get on, but I think we've had some really great people. We had Daniel Meisler. We had Scott Piper. So some really big names, obviously the CISO of Siemens, Kurt as well. So we've been really lucky to get a lot of great people and dream guests already, but I think there's few more on the list.
Would probably say for me the definition of dream guest would be like people like I would imagine that it would be really hard to even talk to the PA of that person. I guess. Like I think so for me, I would definitely love to have someone like the CEO of Google Cloud or CEO of AWS or CEO, like those guys who are leading such businesses. What do they see? I think that would be, and I think not because I think it's unachievable, it definitely is achievable, but I definitely feel that right now I'm not in a stage where I can achieve it. But maybe I can come back and we do a second interview someday in the future.
Like Raji,
when you're like best, and we can talk about how I spoke in Malayalam to the Google Cloud CEO. That'll be pretty awesome though, at that point. If I can manage Malayalam.
You speak Malayalam, manage Malayalam, I manage Malayalam. We could have
there you go. I definitely manage Malayalam as well. So I don't think he'll understand because my parents don't understand me. So I don't know how he's gonna understand. If he, I'm assuming I just went with the name. I'm assuming he will do as well.
Yeah, maybe. No, I don't know.
I
looked at your last one. I was like, maybe he's a Malayali. I don't know.
But his last name is Korean, so he's definitely a Malayali there. I don't know. So I'm like, Koreans cannot be Tamil, I guess. Koreans are always Malayali. But anyway, we're going off topic.
It's an
Yes, but I think that would be my dream guest. So having the CEOs of these cloud providers, I think that would be, from a cloud security perspective, like that definitely would be right. If I were to create content, I would love to create content with Elon Musk someday.
I hope your dream guests come true.
Yes, thank you. I hope so.
And both of your visions come true.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashish and Shilpi, for
taking
time out and talking to me. I'm just really humbled, really grateful. 2 articles in, and you're willing to talk to someone who doesn't have a following base or just any content to talk of. But
this is really good.
We really enjoyed it, and I think it was good to sort of get someone else's perspective, and it's everything begins somewhere. So I think that's what we want to support people, where they're beginning somewhere. I guess.
I look forward to the book, by the way, Raji. No pressure. I'm gonna message your husband as well. Like, by the way, how's Raji going with the book?
And he's like, what book?
We'll find out.
We'll find out. I really hope. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you for taking
problem.
the time out.
Hopefully
such a short
you
notice.
Have a good weekend. Sorry.
Such a short notice. Both of you made time on a long weekend. Just
not a problem. I'm so glad we could do this, and we found the right window as well.
And we're in Melbourne, so maybe we'll meet like face to face.
Yeah, we can get the dog as well.
But we can hook that out.
Sure, we can work that out.
Yeah, of course. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.